Hi, it's Rick Wells. I've got a problem with John Kerry. Same problem I got with Hussein Obama. So I want you to listen to this drivel that's coming out of his mouth there. About 20 seconds worth. And I want to point something out.
The reason I have made climate change a priority in my current role as Secretary of State is not simply because climate change is a threat to the environment. It's because by fueling extreme weather events, undermining our military readiness, exacerbating conflicts around the world, climate change is a threat to the security of the United States, and indeed to the security and stability of countries everywhere.
All right. This is nothing new. This is nothing new. Back in 2009, the last time they tried this officially, Copenhagen, which is more than it was like 6 years ago. The argument was the same. He wasn't Secretary of State then. He was just a pathetic excuse for a Massachusetts senator. But he wrote an op-ed to the Huffington Post. Here it is. You see the date there, October 16th, 2009. Right there it is. In which he makes the same nonsense arguments. At first he equates terrorism with climate change and the lack of an adequate response to a warning by George W. Bush. So he says 36 days later, Al-Qaeda fulfilled the threat that was ignored. So now, in his strange way of equating the two, scientists tell us we have a 10-year window. This was in 2009, if even that, so 10 years or less, before catastrophic climate change becomes inevitable and irreversible. The threat is real and time is not on our side. Well, time's really not on his side because nothing's happened in 6 years. That means you got 4 years left. The planet better get darn busy in a hurry because we got a catastrophe we got to meet. He goes on down here, make no mistake, catastrophic climate change represents a threat to human security, global security, and national security. Same thing he was saying there. And he talks about how everybody can't get along when they're in an already volatile world and fighting over scarce resources and people being displaced, kind of like what they've got orchestrated in Europe now. And we risk fanning the flames of failed statism. And it goes. So, but there's an answer. Oh, by the way, here we got Hurricane Katrina, and it's interesting. It says we don't know if Hurricane Katrina was caused by climate change, but we do know that we are rapidly heading for a world where climate change causes worse Katrinas. So Katrina wasn't caused by climate change, but the next Katrina is going to be caused by climate change. And the same thing with pushing Darfur over the edge. We don't know with certainty whether climate change pushed Darfur over the edge, but we do know that it will cause more tensions like we've seen in Darfur, so more Darfurs. So climate change, in essence, what he's saying. He's hedging his bet because it's all based on baloney. But he's going ahead and making the claim anyway, which is what they do. So as he wrapped that thing up there, he says, once you accept the science or surrender to the propaganda, as would be more correct, it's clear that such massive environmental change will create dislocation, destruction, chaos, and conflict. Same thing he's saying now, and then they pitched the 192 nations that will be gathering in Copenhagen and the opportunity that it provided us if we are to meet this challenge head on and prevail, or the alternative of if we are to suffer the worst consequences of a warming planet. Okay, so we've been suffering those worst consequences worst consequences for 6 years. And aside from having to deal with a communist in the White House who's daily trying to destroy our country, the planet's done okay. The planet hasn't been bad. There's been no warming at all for 18 years. Sea levels aren't rising as much as they'd love for them to do. They're not rising anywhere. In fact, if you go on the NOAA climate.gov website and you look, there's arrows going up and down right next to each other. It's levels going up here, levels going down here. It's total nonsense. And look around Africa. Look around parts of the Middle East. There's no sensing devices there. Why? Well, maybe the readings aren't favorable to their arguments. That would be my guess. But what do I know? I'm not NOAA. They've got all the data. They manipulate it. They create it. They manipulate it however they choose. We don't have any way of knowing what's true and what's not. So anyway, continuing on. Now you see the backdrop here of 2009. Now look at what he's saying. This disgusting, despicable, anti-American criminal. Him and the disgusting, despicable anti-American criminal that he works for, Hussein Obama, what they're saying, what they're trying to do in 3 weeks.
When we talk about climate change, we're not just talking about the harm that is caused to the habitat for butterflies or polar bears, as some people try.
Give me a friggin' break. I'm going to destroy my country so there's some stinking butterflies worried about some dang butterflies and polar bears. I don't care about butterflies. They're nice, they're pretty, or whatever. So what? Compared to my country, they're nothing. And polar bears, their population's record highs right now. These idiots won't admit it because it doesn't meet their agenda. But it's all garbage. It's all garbage, and I don't care about butterflies.
To mock it?
Yeah, I'll mock it.
As serious as those effects might be.
Serious. Butterflies are serious.
We are talking about the impacts on people. People everywhere. Of severe droughts, rapid sea level rise. We're talking about the impacts.
See, they always talk about this in the most drastic Mayday, red alert, red alert. He's the red alert. He's the commie. If the sea levels are rising everywhere, then name a specific location. Name something. Show something. They cite Miami as a location where the streets flood. Well, they flood because of erosion, not because of sea levels rising. It's because of an erosion. The supposed island that Obama was at in Alaska it's erosion that's the problem there. It's nothing to do with rising sea levels, but they conflate the two so that people get a distorted representation. It's lying. It's soft lying. It's disinformation. It's not true, but it gives the perception that they're trying to deliver.
On whole cities of unpredictable and uncontrollable extreme weather events.
Unpredictable and uncontrollable. Well, if you can't predict it, then what are you doing predicting it? And put your tongue back in your mouth, you freak. And if they're uncontrollable, then what are you doing trying to control them? They're uncontrollable. That means you're wasting our time, money, and destroying our country for no good reason.
We're talking about the impact on entire countries of fundamental shocks to the global agricultural system. When we talk about the
fundamental shock to the global and to entire countries. This clown works for the United States, supposedly. I think we're not getting our money's worth. What's he doing acting as Secretary of State for the world? He's not. He's got no dang business doing that. It's not what he's getting paid to do. Instead of representing us, he's working against us. That's what he's doing. That needs to stop. On his part and on his criminal boss's part.
Impacts of climate change. We're not just up against some really serious ecological challenges.
No, we're not.
We also have to prepare ourselves for the potential social and political consequences that stem from crop failures, water shortages, famine, outbreaks of epidemic disease.
Which are not happening. Famines happen from time to time. Droughts happen from time to time. All of these things happen from time to time. He didn't mention locusts, but those happen from time to time. So what? You don't prepare and fight them when they're not happening, and you do prepare and fight them, deal with them when they are happening. That's how it works.
Which we saw a near brush with Ebola in 3 African countries last year. And we have to heighten our national security readiness to deal with the possible destruction of vital infrastructure and the
possible heightened readiness, possible.
mass movement of refugees,
The mass movement of refugees like they're orchestrating in Europe right now.
particularly in parts of the world that already provide fertile ground for violent extremism and terror.
Right.
Long story short, climate
This is his money line.
change is not just about Bambi, it's about all of us.
It's about Bambi because it's a cartoon. He's a cartoon. Climate change is just as real as Bambi from the standpoint of man being able to do anything about it. The planet changes, the climate changes, the weather changes today from what it was yesterday. It'll be different tomorrow. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It's supposed to change. The climate changes. The data has been altered by the people at the UN that this clown or this criminal and his criminal boss work for, the IPCC. The hockey stick is a fraud. Hockey stick graph is a fraud. They left out the median of a warm period and they left out the little ice age so that it could look like all of a sudden, bam, everything took off and went nuts. It didn't. It didn't. This is all fabricated on phony, baloney science. That we're supposed to trust them because they're the government. That's the main reason why we shouldn't trust either one of them. They're the government and they're criminals. This is a plot that's coming together the first week of December. Need to call it for what it is. It's a campaign that's been ongoing for a long time. This guy's been working on it since here, 2000, since his op-ed 2009, since before he got in there. Heinz Foods, when they do, I mean, he did a thing in September, October maybe, where he was in Chile doing ocean, One Ocean is what they called it. and then he made a statement that climate security is food security. Well, what's his family business? Oh, ketchup and pickles and whatever. I don't know. He looks like a pickle. Their family business is food, and they're going to sell to the world food as part of this preparation. Ain't none of this what they say it is. None of it. It's all a scam, and we're the ones being fleeced. Thanks.